Well, hello peeps! So today I'm gonna give you my impressions of the War Within Season 2, going basically over my feelings of the season, where do I think Blizzard has improved, and what problems do I think remain. Now peeps, I'm still not gonna be on camera unfortunately, because I've had some of these eye issues that maybe you have heard in my videos about, but we have finally figured out what it has to do with. It's actually something to do with my skin type, and yeah, hopefully I'll be back on camera soon here for you peeps. But I also want to tell you the reason why you haven't really received any videos late has been just because I've been enjoying the game. I've been actually really enjoying the game, playing it on a kind of a more casual level. I haven't really been like pushing rating. I've gotten like some 1800s, but I've been just playing the game on like a casual level and actually really enjoying my time. Unfortunately, I just don't have as much free time as before, so the content creation side has gotten a little bit delayed. That's why we are here today. Now let's get into the big positives, and I actually think I've never played in a time where I felt like every class is strong in some way, shape or form. I have personally really been enjoying alting and just playing a variety of classes. Sure, there's a few underperformers and overperformers as usual, but generally speaking, most classes feel like they are in a good spot. Maybe your class doesn't do like the most damage, but it's strong in another way. A good example of that would be like Outlaw Rogue, which is like not really damage-wise like insane, but absolutely nuts in the arenas with its survivability and control. On the other hand, you have things like Enhancement Shaman that just does an insane amount of damage constantly, things like Fury Warrior that just constantly spewing damage. Demon Hunter as well, I would put in kind of that bracket as well, where you're just constantly spewing out insane amounts of damages. Those then get contrasted by classes like, I would say, Frost Death Knight, that are just very cooldown based and are maybe not spewing out constant amounts of insane damage, but when they are spewing damage, they are killing, right? So it just feels like there's a kind of difference in kind of how the classes do damage, and sometimes the class maybe doesn't do as much damage, but it's actually really good in other ways. So for me personally, this is just a huge plus for the game. Yes, tunings might be a little bit lackluster, like the Fire Mage nerfs making through PvP, but the Frost and Arcane ones not making through PvP. Like, kind of a little bit nuts there. Why is Fire getting nerfed in PvP when you don't see Fire like ever, and Frost and Arcane are being protected? Kind of confusing. Also, Retribution is getting like the third or fourth buff in a row. Meanwhile, on something like Unholy DK is just getting absolutely ignored. So kind of lackluster, I would still say. And that perfectly segues us into the topic of tunings. Yes, they are lackluster, but I feel like they are listening. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, I think influencers are actually having an impact, or to say influence, this time around. I'm saying this based on the insane amount of Ret Paladin buffs before even addressing the game-breaking bugs that make a Ret do lower damage than intended. In any case, this is something that could be a double-edged sword if Blizzard does not have a strong internal vision and policies regarding PvP balance. Ultimately, peeps, it might be just me being a little bit suspicious, because Ret has been receiving quite a bit of buffs when there's other things that are also underperforming, and Ret also has a really good force set that we just haven't gotten yet. And at this point, we kind of get into the negatives, so I'm not gonna harp on this first point, but I feel like healers are still gods. Thankfully, this is something that's actually getting addressed with the recent tunings, with adding dampening into solo RPGs and the RPG format in general, but I would honestly wish if they just went away with the dampening. Just balance healing around, no dampening, and yeah, I'm just tired of healers being gods in freaking BGs. Like, it just feels so uneventful. It's probably similar to how healers feel in the solo shuffle, where they feel very powerless to kind of control the win. That's how it has felt in BGs for a while now, like where healers just feel like they're absolute gods and you're just absolutely powerless compared to a healer. Ultimately, I think this is a design issue, and healers are designed around PV rotations, right, and PV amounts of mana. So really, to kind of get out of dampening, I think we really need to start balancing the game around the mana, right? Things shouldn't die when dampening gets into that point where things can die. Things should die when healers are running out of mana or are unable to heal, aka being CC'd. Gearing is also just another issue that keeps cropping itself up. Partially it has to do with just how we get gear throughout the season. We are kind of time gated with PvP gear, right? We get our full class very late into the season, I would say. Or should I say, we only get to enjoy our full class after like a month or two, which is just not a good design for a PvP game that has constant tunings and should have constant tunings, right? Why are we tuning things when we're not like playing the full thing? Another part to it is just people who have played a few seasons like me are just at this point, I think, bored with this kind of a system. Every season I'm refarming the exact same gear. I'm doing the exact same things for basically no reason. For me, it really feels bad to replace my hard-earned conquest gear, tier sets, and whatnot, like with full gems and whatnot, with freaking honor gear of the new season. I just feel like this is something that has starting to drain on me, and it just feels boring. Why am I constantly just refarming the same exact gear? And these things just bring me to think that I think PvP gearing needs to kind of get changed. We need to have some kind of a permanence when it comes to the gearing, because for me, it just feels really dumb, really time wasting to just refarm the same exact gear. And I also think it's just something that's not good for the actual game. The fact that we are playing our full class after a month plus something to the release of the season, the fact that we are getting like 2 or 3 tunings patches that are not really even affecting the entire picture really, right? Because we don't get really the full picture until like a month plus into the season. So as far as I'm concerned, PvP gearing just needs to get changed in some way, shape or form, where we can kind of keep our gear, especially if we played for multiple seasons. Like at this point, I've been playing the game for like 2 expansions, 3 expansions in a row. And I've been doing the same exact thing for many seasons in a row, so I'm like really like bored out of this system. Like, and it also feels bad, like if you need to change stats, if you want to test out the different stats, it just feels anti-fun that we are kind of like time gated with our gear for some reason in PvP. When in reality, we should just have full gearing freedom, I feel like. Now, there's obviously still some other minor issues like queues and whatnot. But I think WoW's biggest issue by far is actually good games coming out. It's kind of an indirect issue, but I feel like for PvP, specifically for PvP, because it's the part of the game that doesn't really get much attention, I feel like that's the biggest issue. There is just many good games that are coming out and that have come out recently. And some of them are not even PvP games, like Kazan the First Berserker, which I'm planning to stream to you peeps. Kazan, by the way, is an absolutely amazing game. If you haven't given it a try, there's a full demo that you can try out on Steam. The demo is like 3 hours long or something. Like, you can really test out the game and see if you like it. There's a new PoE 2 patch coming out with a brand new class and like hundreds of support gems, new weapons, new maps, new everything. They're also trying to remove the tediousness from the late game and such. So there's just many good stuff that is happening in the gaming sphere that the neglected WoW PvP, I think, just can't stand up to anymore. At this point, the neglect is really starting to show. But it's always the absolute focus with no thought of PvP that's just hurting the PvP side forever. They're never worried if something is a good idea to be added for PvP. The only concern is how does this work or feel in PvE. Prime example of this would be when they changed the talents in Dragonflight. So many CC got basically added onto classes, things that used to be a choice between each other now wasn't a choice, you could just pick it up, that they actually had to do a full CC nerf. Even though I agree with reducing the duration of CC, specifically because I feel like most games have done that, and I feel like WoW has left that on the burner for a very long time, but it's something that should have been done baseline, not just when we actually got like additional CC added onto classes that we just have to get a nerf CC, otherwise, I mean, everybody's just spending 20 CC second chains like constantly. Hero talents as well could be added here. Some of them are very problematic and they actually add power to PvP outside of just the damage, right? Something like Sentinel from Hunters, which just has the freaking annoying ass root, unbreakable root, which turns into basically a stun on melee classes. On Warrior, Slayer actually has a root break while the other ones don't have, right? So it's just, I feel like, something that also added a problem in PvP, where you have things that are just added now onto classes, CC being added onto classes, defenses being added onto classes. It's just kind of a mess. It's kind of a mess. So in conclusion, I think Season 2 is definitely an improvement over Season 1. Just unfortunately not in as many ways as one would hope. I have been enjoying my time quite a bit, but I have also been playing more casually than usual, and I'm pretty sure that's kind of been the key to my enjoyment. But I'm pretty sure also the moment I start farming out the game a little bit more, I'm also gonna get into that point where my queues are gonna get long enough, and I'm just not gonna be having the fun with the game that I'm having right now. And I'm kind of in a funny position where I don't even want to push rating simply because I'm having enjoyable queues, and I know the moment I push rating is the moment I'm gonna start having half an hour queues and an hour long queues. So in any case, peeps, I really hope you've enjoyed this little video. Like, comment, subscribe, all those things YouTubers want you to do, and have a nice day.